Thank you, John. First of all, thank you, Botswana and the Minister of Botswana for having us here. It's been an absolutely delightful event. And I'd like to thank you, panel, to start this discussion. Africa's focus on the development of its workforce through education is key in its economic development. But just as important is the link to industry, to ensure that once one is going into a job market, that he is job ready. Industry often complains of the lack of interaction and partnership with the higher educational sector. And this is not only true on this continent, it is actually worldwide that people are complaining about this. Yesterday we have addressed the input of the K-12 level. We've talked a lot about connectivity. And the K-12 will provide you with input for your future students. People that will learn analytical thinking, but also critical thinking and communication. To continue this cycle, higher education on this continent needs to gain its place on the rankings, which is based on research today, but also needs to face the issues that are proper to this environment, which are not at all in our community. One is the infrastructures and the connectivity that causes problems for collaboration on international level. There's a lack of confidence of the international industry to leave and give the research to be done in country, which leads to a poor research-fed teaching environment. A lack of qualified lecturers in the needed sector for economic growth. And then I think one of the most important ones is the classrooms that can go up to about 1,200, 1,600 people to teach. So it's huge classrooms. The last one, and it's not the least, I would say, is a mindset that goes from knowledge. We all think that knowledge is the best way forward for our children and will give them a job, instead of a vocational training, which will not give them a job or a lesser job. So there's different things to discuss today. That gets me to my first question to your Honourable Minister of Burundi, Dr. Joseph Butore. I will translate the questions into French at the same time to make sure that everyone understood on this panel. So to tackle the collaboration of the infrastructural level, we need to overcome the connectivity issues that we have. And many universities pay high prices for their internet access necessary to operate in these institutions. Do you have any thoughts on how to improve what we call pricing to universities by either forming university consortiums or actually having the ministry manage things on a governing or ministerial country level?
Pour commencer, la collaboration entre les différentes universités, il est difficile en fait aujourd'hui de faire cette collaboration à cause de la connectivité qui manque. Ceci est un problème de prix. Est-ce que vous pensez aujourd'hui qu'il est important, ou est-ce que vous pensez que vous pouvez donner vos idées sur la stratégie sur les prix et sur surtout comment on peut arranger les prix pour les universités? Donc est-ce qu'on va mettre ça dans un consortium ou est-ce qu'on travaille plutôt au niveau national où vous allez régler ce problème pour les universités pour donner un accès aux étudiants?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before answering to your question, I'd like to use this moment to thank the organizers who invited me to participate to this summit. I also want to thank the local committee of organization with the protocol accorded to me and my delegation. The third one, I have a message from my country, from Burundian people, who asked me to tell Dumela to Botswana. So, I answered your question, but my English level maybe will not allow to me to answer, to give good answers in English, but I will try. If something will not be clear, I hope Madam Chair will complete. So, about connectivity in Burundi, Last time we have very good news because fiber optic is coming to Burundi. Now we have 1,250 kilometers. It's covering 9 provinces for 17 we have in the country. So the next step is it will be the next year to connect our services, of course, our universities, to the fiber cable. So it means that I cannot now tell you exactly what will be the prices. But what I'm sure is that our state governments, they are supported by the government. I'm sure that we give a sufficient budget to cover this connection. About private universities, because we also have those private universities, I'm not sure how the government will give to them a lot of money, but we will try to support them also because we consider them like a partners, not a private university, but like a partners. So in the government, we have the mission to support them. This is what I can say for the moment, and after I give another answer if you ask another question, if something is not clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. Mrs. Van Meyck, what do you think of this from the South African point of view? Because it's different scenery.
I think the cost of connectivity is a function of many things, including the regulatory regime, the number of operators, the degree to which you are in effective competition with another, the distance from the submarine cable, and we talk a lot about that, even the cable landing stations, the extent to which access to the submarine cable capacity is open to all comers or is manipulated by 1 or 2 operators to prevent such access, and we know in Africa what that means. There was a Ternet study done a few years ago which demonstrated that the real transparent cost-related pricing does not happen until there's a critical mass and a critical number of competitive operators. Bandwidth consortia are the only way to gain traction, even when the bandwidth market is still immature. But while it can lead to improvement, it doesn't solve the problem. The cost of connectivity will remain unacceptably high until the regulatory regime is sufficiently open, until there's effective competition, and until there's sufficient infrastructure to avoid the digital divides based on geography. The best hope still lies, I believe, in the effective implementation of government policy. And I want to emphasize on the implementation of policy, because a lot of good policies are already in existence. But our experience is that the implementation of that policy is really always the challenge. And higher education is an engine of development and transformation, and the national research and education networks are engines of innovation. And if the direction of government policy is supportive of these objectives, then policy initiatives can generally be promoted. A good example is the happening in Kenya, and we've heard about the Kenyan example, and I think that's a very good example, where government policy has rapidly brought the national research and education network there to a level of comparable to what we even have in South Africa, and we can learn a lot from them.
Okay.
If the drift of government policy is hostile to the objectives, then higher education faces a long and heartbreaking struggle, I believe.
Likely. Thank you very much. As we have been talking for the last 2 days a lot about connectivity, we're going more into the industry area, into the employment area and the economic growth area, because connectivity today is an issue. We've heard it, we know it needs to be dealt with, we need about pricing. There's other areas in higher education where I think it is very important to discuss. As one of them is applied research. Now, applied research provides today funding to the universities. It provides research input for research-led teaching. It is a link to the industry to ensure employability and up-to-date curricula, and many other things. It's also something that will provide economic growth, because on the back of these research projects today, companies actually are started up in many developing countries. Can you, Mr. Jordaan from Pretoria University, how do you link with industry to ensure that your programs result into job-ready people? And is it actually, do you think is it your responsibility as a university to do that?
Chair, yes, thank you for the question. And again, I want to express the same sentiment as all the panel members here. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and sit in front of you. I can only speak from what's happening on campus, and I'm from University of Pretoria, which I need to give you a little bit of background to. I'm mostly involved with the academic support, so therefore we work in close collaboration with our faculty. And I'm definitely aware that most of our faculty, apart from the accreditation processes, which they need to adhere to every specific amount of years, most of our faculties has advisory boards. These are advisory boards coming from the industry. Also, some of the faculties, and I think again, most of them, have the advantage of have very good close relationships with the industry, where there's not only bursary provided, but also internships. So students being either receive bursary or they go and work. Our engineering faculty is a good example, and I think the colleague next to me will elaborate on that. But in general, there's no way that you cannot look at the recurriculum, your current curriculum, without keeping the output in mind, the outcome. And the outcome needs to be industry-faced. In saying that, I'm sure that everybody will agree to us that there's still a debate currently in Africa, and specifically in South Africa, and I've heard frequent communications coming from the National Department of Higher Education, and even at ministry level, where they said there's maybe at parent level overemphasis on education, specifically tertiary education with a focus on higher education, and looking at the amount of people applying for the technologies focus areas, the University of Technologies. I think we must maybe shift our focus in general also to that area, because we do lack skills. Skills is very important. I'm going to ask, I think, the colleague from Zimbabwe to elaborate on this.
Yes, Dr. Brooking.
Thank you. Also, just to echo the thoughts, and thanks to the Botswana government and the organisers for inviting me here. I think Zimbabwe is maybe the same as in Wales. There has been quite a depression with industry. So it's been difficult to engage industry when they are struggling. So when industry is in an economic shutdown mode, researchers are first thing that they cut out. So they are just trying to make ends meet at the end of the day. But I think a bigger problem that institutions have had in the past is we go with a big and bold mentality. Please help us to fund a lab. Please help us to do that. And in environments where there is no money, or money is very scarce, that's going to come back pretty empty, that bowl. I think we need to change our focus on research. I think we need to engage more with industry, find out what industry actually needs for research that they would be willing to fund and put back into the university. And that needs to be localized. I think what is done in MIT is not applicable to what can be done at University of Pretoria or UZ. It's got to be totally localized because we have local industries, we have local needs and requirements that are unique. And that's what we need to look at. We need to look at and specialize on those areas. And I think that's what's starting to happen, and funding is coming in. So it's small ways. What we're doing is we're getting each student project funded. We have a big initiative now with the Royal Academy of Engineers, which is looking at upgrading the technical skills of the staff. And that's another big problem, is our capacity development is very low. So and that's engaging industry to come in, sending our staff to industry, and getting industry to come into us to teach us or to tell us what they like in our curriculum. And then hopefully that way engage more research that is more locally orientated, and that way get funding.
Hey, Mr. Jordaan, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I want to add to that. A good case study is if you take the link between national strategies and initiatives. In our part of the world, mining plays an important role to the economy. So therefore, mining recently invested millions into our mining engineering department, literally with the two outcomes, mainly just to produce more qualified mine engineers, also just to feed back the research back to the mining industry. And I think that's a good example based on your question.
Of research-led.
Yes.
Professor Oupa Mashile.
Yes, can I add? And thank you also for inviting. I would like to thank the Botswana government for hosting us here. One of the other elements that could help here is the infrastructure put by a country. For instance, in South Africa, we have sector education committees. The Deputy Minister spoke about them yesterday, the sitters, who help to do the spade work and the research with regards to industry. What are the needs? What is required? And through funding, then can be able to liaise with universities to indicate what kind of programs should be made available. But also the governments also play a huge role here. For instance, in our case, we have a time when we do what we call enrollment planning or management. And it is when now universities interact with the National Department of Higher Education and Training and with their large-scale surveys that they carry out, they are able to indicate to universities, these are the critical areas where we are, as a country, we are lacking and we need more people here. So individual institutions can then reorganize in terms of how much people they enroll in particular programs. So it's collaboration both with industry, with government, and with universities to make this possible.
So you would in this case you would go for quotas of different curricula or different areas. You would get more interaction with industry, and you would get your funding also from industry if it is more industry focused. So I think the collaboration between industry and universities is absolutely key. There's another link I would say is today is important, and I might jump a little bit, and I would like to ask this question to our Honourable Minister. In today's world, especially in a lot of societies today, knowledge is the key to success, right? So going into a trade or being a technicien supérieur in this case is seen as a lesser job than being a psychologist or being an anthropologist or anything else in that area. So, and on top of that, we obviously have the engineering skills, which today will give the economic growth to most of the countries, because this is where we're lacking a lot of people. How do you suggest as a ministry and as a government, it is a mindset change, so it goes from a high level all the way down. What would you think of how would you go about to get this mindset change? And do you think it is important to also develop your vocational areas and not only your higher educational areas? Est-ce que vous voulez que je traduise?
No, ça va. It's okay. So thank you, Madam Chair, for this question. Let me begin that the global political for higher education in our country. So for the moment, we are moving into 4 directions. The first one is to adapt our system of higher education to regional context. So we introduce the system BMD, what you call LMD in the French system. And the second one is professionalization of our higher education. And here we understand to build higher professional institutes in regions of the country, not to continue to take more students to the only state university of Bujumbura, but to build higher professional institutes in other provinces of the country. The third one is to develop technology and sciences, and here we understand to build a big campus for agro-technology. And how do you call campus numérique géant? Campus numérique géant.
Digital campus.
Yeah, big digital campus, which will be located in the University of Bujumbura. And the fourth one is to develop research. But developing research, we are going to privilege, the topics which are directly connected with the development of the population. Not to make research for making research, but be quite in choosing the topics, because in the future you want to show the connection between results of researchers and the real needs of the population. Yeah, it is true because the big classrooms is a big challenge for a country like Burundi, where you have 9 millions of a small country. And today, every young people want to study in universities. This is their right, you can't say no. But the other side, we know that the government doesn't have the capacity to offer the conditions to those young people who want to start in universities. And I can add that 8 years ago, the government decided that in primary school, parents will not pay money. So now we have many children in primary school, 2 million for a population of 9 million. You understand what it does mean? What it means, sorry. And every year we see a pressure from the young people who want to study in universities. So the government decides, yes, come and study university, but you have to follow the policy which gives a good place to professionalization.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're talking about mindsets, and we've just had a little discussion on teachers' mindset, and I think it is important to share. How do you change and how do you integrate ICT into, we think that ICT is the solution to most of our problems today, but there is also a mindset within teachers and teachers in higher education that is quite conventional from time to time. How do you change this mindset, and how do you convert this mindset towards the educational technology? Mr. Oupa?
Yeah, if people who are going to teach our students, our learners, are themselves not competent in using technologies, they simply don't use it. And so one of the strategies, I think, should be to target teacher training and ensure that the programs that are meant for teacher training firstly have high engagement with the use of technologies, and secondly, that the competencies that are measured of those graduates must demonstrate competency in technologies. So once the teachers themselves have that competence, then they are confident enough to go into classrooms and to use the technology. But on another level is the level of ensuring that the schools themselves have an environment that will accommodate these changes, so that computers are not seen as a burden by the parents. And so at the level of the schools is that there needs to be a lot of advocacy to ensure that parents understand the investment that must be put in terms of buying equipment. In an environment where education is not free for all, it's subsidized, parents need to play also a role. And so a level of advocacy to ensure that parents understand the investment that goes into buying equipment is important.
Okay. And how do you integrate, because higher education trains teachers, okay? How would you do that within your institutions? How does this work?
Yeah, the institutions, I'll only speak from our context. Yes, in UNISA, for instance, we are a distance education institution, and by nature our students are not just located on campus, and so what we request them to do is to use those kinds of technologies. For instance, with some programs, when they have to do initial teaching practice, we require them to be able to be connected with a lecturer at the university using technology, whether it's Skype or something like that, and then they start interacting there right in the classroom, and we build in environments where, as part of their training, they have to take compulsory modules, or what you call courses, which are mainly online. And in that way, we inculcate the skill of being able to use technologies. And so by doing that, we think that it is some of the ways that will enable them to be competent. But looking at what other institutions already in South Africa are also doing, they also make use of even face-to-face residential universities. They make a lot of use of computers in the teaching. Some of the content is actually delivered using online platforms, even within residential institutions, to enable students to be able to be comfortable with the usage of technologies.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's integrating ICT at a tertiary level is less of an issue than it is at secondary and primary. But what we found, certainly working with secondary and primary schools, is that basically our education system teaches people that failure is bad. And so it actually kills creativity. So these grown-ups, or the teachers, are scared of failure, and they're scared to do anything on a computer. So what we try to do is make it fun, integrate it, make it fun. Eventually they get used to it. Hopefully in time most of them do. But the complicated, or for me the hardest part, is actually not teaching people how to use technology, but how to be creative with technology to enhance their teaching. And I think that is the hardest thing. And that's not a skill really. It's less of a skill. It's more of a, they can be taught. It's more of an intrinsic. Inspired teachers will inspire children with a blackboard or with technology. And I think that's the key. We've got to get the inspired teachers to get us going on. But it's not the technology, it's the teachers that are the key. And inspired teachers seem to breed inspired teachers and put them together, group them together. We can use technology for that. And that's how IT will get out into the schools, into universities.
Okay. How do you... To get to the inspired teacher, right? It is also, we've just discussed this also, this is on a teacher level, on a higher educational level, on a ministry level. Mrs. Van Wyk, on a ministry level, how would you think that we can change teachers more towards ICT and to get this on a governing level? Is this in your policies? How do you work with teacher training on this? Because that is key to the issue.
Yes, I think you touch on a very important issue, is the whole issue of policy. And Mr. Kavuma has spoken about the white paper on e-education in South Africa. And I think the white paper provides a very good, solid basis for teacher development, because he said one of the strategic objectives is the professional development of teachers. But I think for us, the challenge remains the implementation and the enabling environment that's created. And I think their government departments and industry need to be together and get together and assist each other in creating that enabling environment. And I'm not going to talk about the cost of connectivity and all those things that goes around with that. But I think I'm always asking the question, what if tomorrow connectivity is free and connectivity is available to everyone? And one of the speakers earlier today has said to us, but what then? We don't have content. We don't have creative ideas to use that connectivity. And I think that's where the problem lies, is we are focusing so much on connectivity and the cost of connectivity and how to bring the cost down and increase access, that we don't think about how do we capacitate teachers and how do teachers really react. Because teachers are wonderful creatures. I've worked with teachers all my life and they're so innovative. And I've seen teachers without connectivity, with one device, with one cell phone in a school. And they really did miracles. And one of the speakers said earlier is we are killing the creativity of teachers through our policies and through controlling it so much, and let teachers take a risk in classrooms. And I must really commend a lot of organizations even here that enable teachers to take that risk and to bring that learning back to their classroom and share it with other teachers within the classroom. And that's at all levels of the system, not only at school level, but even at university level. Because I am encouraged by the way that university lecturers are really integrating ICT with minimal connectivity. And I really encourage people to think creatively and don't think about the problems all the time.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to react to that?
I think maybe just a little bit of background for my answer and then answer. In my institution, we have about 35,000 students online on a monthly basis, about 1,500 active lecturers involved, 12 to 14,000 students using their mobile phones to access this. Now the question is, where do we get and how do we got to the 1,500 lecturers involved, apart from their other priorities? And the basic fact in life is the question is, what's in it for me? And that brings me to the other level of, I think, the discussion which may be applicable. So we provide a lot of effort to promote good research and good, but what is the effort and incentives which we give to our teachers in school and to our education, tertiary education? How do we reward them? In South Africa, there's various rewards. There's the reward for higher education, learning, technology, and that's been given out. But are they equal to the research awards? The question is, how do we stimulate what's in it for me by providing at least an incentive at that level? And that incentive can have different means, not always have to be financial incentives.
Thank you very much. We're coming actually to the end of our discussion. I'm told that we would like to have, I think it is lunch at 12 o'clock. Just to conclude, and then I would like to introduce a little video. The connectivity, we all agree it's all a problem. If it's there tomorrow and if it's all done and it's all wonderful, it's not going to be the solution because we don't have content. We don't have teachers that are actually equipped today with content that is integrated into the ICT. And so this is one of the key messages, I think, is teachers are your prime resource, which need to be developed. On top of that, it is the applied research that leads to industry engagement, and industry engagement will lead eventually to jobs, because that's what they all want. We want a job in the end. So to get the industry to engage with your universities, to work with government, to make sure that the curriculums are up to standard, but it's also to reassure that government knows which quotas we need for which areas, and that certain areas we don't need more people of those for the next 10 years. I would finish off in this case with linking industry to higher education is essential, and it's to create job-ready people that are, as the Minister of Botswana said quite rightly, the diamonds of the future. So I think that is very important. Now, as I'm here with smart technologies, and higher education, teacher training is very key to us. I have come across I'm actually managing a project in the Gambia at the moment, which is very close to my heart, where we have integrated technology with instant assessment within the curriculum, using the technology in an average school, where students have given a lot of positive feedback, where results are very good, but it shows you that it's possible, but it's possible with and without the connectivity. So let me just introduce the video. It's been done by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education.
Because learning is the whole experience. It's not just you sitting down observing somebody perform, but collaborating with the students, and the students collaborating with the teacher and other students, to construct their own knowledge, their own understanding, and the shift is that they take ownership of these concepts that they're learning. It's not like you telling me everything. It can go in here.
I was a teacher in the United States, and I'm a Peace Corps volunteer here, working with the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. But I would say that quantitatively, we don't know yet, but qualitatively, if you're in a classroom and you're watching the interaction between the students and the teacher, and it feels very different than.
Method of teaching science is completely different from the traditional method we are used to. The method has proven to be more successful and it's observing children generally. When it comes to technology, they are easily used to it. They are learning quickly. Now, them using the responders, using computers and smartphone, it's entertaining them, just like.
Enhances my teaching and it introduced me to new teaching techniques. I've learned a lot using the smart board, which is the latest technology way of teaching mathematics. Okay. And the students themselves are participatory because it is engaging. And you know the response of every student at every point in time, for every question, the percentage, it has statistical meaning to your teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've taught endorsement courses in the United States, I've taught the physics endorsement course in the Gambia, and right now I'm working with our Gambian trainers as they're training their first group of physics teachers. The technology is really what ties everything together. It enables this rapid paradigm shift of a different type of teaching and learning because it's the vehicle that the curriculum is delivered through, and then those responders are just crucial for getting that immediate feedback from the students. It's fun for them to use the responders. It's like a game, and it helps the teacher teach reflexively. So the technology is the piece that really ties it all together. We're used to teaching in a very traditional manner, more of a lecture style, and we're trying to change their mindset to think about, instead of what they're saying, how they can facilitate the students' learning. And we're using the exact same methods that we use in Jersey, very natural to the teachers here. The culture here is a very social culture. So to switch to having a classroom structure where people are working in small groups and discussing and debating answers with each other has actually been a very natural progression for them. And the nice thing is a lot of them are learning the physics content for the first time, so they experience it from a learning perspective. From what the teachers report anecdotally, the students love the classes. They say the students are lined up early in the morning to make sure they get a seat inside the physics classroom. In some schools, the students are actually coming after hours to learn physics when they can get the classrooms that have the smart boards and the responders in them. Everyone is really receptive to that style. And the data that we've gotten from the students so far is very encouraging. They're doing very well.
How important is the technology?
Engage more with the content they're being, or the new concept they're being introduced to. In that sense, they learn more than you would have ever imagined, with you controlling every aspect, telling them, spoon feeding them everything. So that's the beauty of it.